this is Carla and welcome back to the studio, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Step It Up Saturday. For this Saturday, I will be featuring the All About Autumn Suite collection, and it can be found in our current September through December 2023 mini catalog. So this collection, there is a bundle of photopolymer stamp set along with a set of dies. There are dies in here for doing labels, cutting out leaves, and then there's some other detailed dies that are in this set of dies as well. Then there is a combo ribbon pack, copper and natural. So it's a 1-inch wide linen type of ribbon. And then we have this really shiny copper ribbon. Then we have the adhesive back speckled dots. We have, looks like Old Olive, Moody Mauve, and I think Crumb Cake, and then Copper Clay. You can't see it, it's up there. And then we have the Distress Tile 3D embossing folder. Some really awesome one side of our DSP. This is the 6x6 All About Autumn Specialty Designer Series paper. So on one side it has all these photo images, and then on the back there is, it's more solid, but then it has some of this copper foiling in it. We'll be using this on all of our projects today. And then also there is the 12x12 Oxidized Copper Specialty Designer Series paper. I will also be using this on our cards today as well. So let me get started. We kind of move everything out of the way. So for my first card, I have a piece of Mossy Meadow measuring 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. I have a piece of the All About Autumn Specialty Designer Series paper measuring 5 1/4 by 4. I have another piece of the All About Autumn Specialty DSP. This measures 4 by 3/4 of an inch, and this is actually the reverse side of this pattern. So when you cut this piece will be left over that you can use on the card. And then I have a piece of Cajun Craze measuring 3 by 2 1/4, very vanilla, 2.5 by 2. And then I cut a 10.5-inch piece of the metallic copper ribbon. So I will start off by folding and burnishing my card base. And then I'll bring in my DSP, and I'm going to put some adhesive on that. We don't want adhesive all over that. Get all over everything. And just make sure there's no adhesive off the edge. And I'll put that on my card like so. And then I'll bring in my little strip, add some adhesive to that. And I will put that out here. Let's get that straight. Bring it down just a little bit. Like so. And then I'm going to add some adhesive onto the strip right here. And I'm going to take my ribbon and I'm just going to zigzag it. so. And I'm going to stick that down right here. Okay. And then on this piece, I'm going to bring in my stamp that says, Autumn teaches us that change can be beautiful. And I'm going to stamp that with my pretty Peacock ink. I'm going to center that. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in 2 punches, the 1 3/4 inch circle and the 2-inch circle. These can be found in our online exclusives in the online store. So I'm going to use my 1 3/4 inch punch, and I'm going to punch out my greeting. Center that. I'll punch that out. And then I'll bring in my 2-inch punch, and I will punch out a piece of Cajun Craze. Okay, and then I will right here bring in my silicone craft sheet. Add some adhesive to this. My seal seems to be a bit fussy lately. Okay, and then I'm going to center this, the very vanilla piece, onto my Cajun Craze. And then I'm going to bring in my dimensionals. And I'll add 3 onto the back. And then I'll put that right on top, like so. And then I'll bring in my embellishments. And take your pick tool, and I'll add 3 of these crumb cake colored dots. Okay, so that is our first card. On to the second. Okay, so for my second card, I have a piece of Cajun Craze measuring 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. Another piece of Cajun Craze measuring 5 1/4 by 1, and another piece measuring 4 1/4 by 3/4. A piece of the About Autumn DSP measuring 5 1/4 by 3. A piece of the Oxidized Copper Specialty DSP. This measures 1 3/4 by 1 3/4. And then I have a piece of Very Vanilla measuring 3 by 1 1/2. And what's nice about this DSP, the paper is 6 by 6. So by just taking off, 3/4 of an inch of the paper off the bottom, you can cut the paper in half, and then you can utilize the whole sheet to make 2 cards. So for this, I'm going to fold and burnish my card base. Okay, we'll set that aside. And then I'm going to be doing some heat embossing and die cutting. So for this piece, I'm going to stamp our greeting with Versamark, and then I'll be heat embossing it with our copper embossing powder. So I'll do that part now. And then I will then later die cut it with this die. It does have just like a border and some stitching in it. And then this piece we'll put aside because we're going to attach it with our other strip. For this oxidized piece, I'm going to have a metal tray off to the side here for all my dies. So this leaf die, I'm going to die cut this oxidized paper with that. And then for this larger piece, I will be embossing that with our Distress Tile 3D embossing folder. So I'll set that aside. And then this piece will go across, so we'll set that aside as well. So for this, I'm going to bring in my Versamark ink and my stamp that says "With a Grateful Heart." I'm going to ink that up. And let's see, I'm going to center that here. And close that up. And I'll bring in my Embossing Additions toolkit. And I didn't use my embossing buddy, so here's the hoping we don't have all these loose powders all over my cardstock. So for this kit, you'll get an embossing buddy, the thing that I didn't use. This is good for you use it on your cardstock, and it removes any oils or static from the cardstock, so you don't have extra loose powders stuck to it. It also comes with reverse tweezers and a brush and this tray. So the little container, there's actually, I would say maybe 2 or 3 jars of the embossing powder in it. I like to dump it in there, it's easier to use it. And so I'm going to add my embossing powder. And I'm going to have to brush some of the loose ones off. Okay. So I'm going to set that aside because we'll heat emboss that along with our die cutting and all that wonderful stuff at the same time, because I'm going to speed it up. So before I do that, I want to explain what I'm going to be doing with this piece. So for this particular piece, I am going to emboss it with this embossing folder. And then once I've done that, I'm going to come in with my Versamark ink, and I'm just going to lightly brush it across the raised portions from the embossing. I will then add some of the copper embossing powder, and I will heat emboss that along with heat embossing this piece here. Okay, so I will be right back. Okay, so let's assemble our card. So what I like to do is, and I have two pieces that I'm going to put together and then center on the cardstock. I like to kind of join these together before I put it on there. So I'm going to flip these over and then I'm going to bring in some Scotch tape. I find it just makes it easier for me in my, for making sure that they're lined up evenly before I put them on the card base. So looking at this piece, my DSP looks like it's just a little bit longer than my embossed piece. So just a little bit right here. So I'm going to bring in my mini trimmer. And let's see. I'm going to put this right up against, so my cardstock piece is right at the edge, and then I'm just going to trim that little tiny bit so now it's even. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my adhesive. I'm going to go right down the edge here, and then I'll come across. Put that on my card base. Press that down. Okay, and then for this strip, I'm going to add some adhesive to this, and I will put that right across the bottom here. Do it like about here. Let's just make sure. Whoops. I want to make sure I got it straight. That down. Make sure it looks straight. Okay. And then I'll bring in my greeting, and we'll add some dimensionals to that. And I will place that right over the strip. Like so. And then I'll bring in my leaf, and I'll add some dimensionals to that. So I have a large one there. And let me bring in my mini ones. Find the mini ones. There they are. And we'll add one to these petals. And then I'll place that right on the corner here. Okay. And then I'm going to use the brushed metallic adhesive back dots. I'm going to use these smaller copper ones, but this is what you get in the package. It looks like you got like a bronze, a copper, and a gold. And then I take a pick tool, and I'm going to add one on either side of the greeting on this Cajun Craze strip. Like so. And then I'm going to bring in my glue dots, and I'm going to add one right on this bottom right hand corner of the greeting. And then I'm going to bring in some linen thread into that. So I'm going to do a double bow. So I'm going to fold this in half. And I'm just going to tie a little bow. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in my scissors. I'm just going to trim, cut that loop. And then I'll just trim the tails. And then I'll add my bow right into that glue dot. Okay, so that is our second card. On to our third. Okay, so for my third card, I have a piece of early espresso measuring 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. I'm having a hard time speaking. I have a piece of the All About Autumn Specialty DSP. This measures 5.5 by 4 1/4. I have a piece of Cajun Craze cardstock measuring 3 1/4 by 3 1/4, and a piece of Pretty Peacock measuring 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. I have the Oxidized Copper Specialty DSP. I got one of each of the patterns measuring 3.5 by 3. And then on the backs of them, I did add a piece of our adhesive sheets. Now these are the retired ones that Stampin' Up! Sold that were made by Sizzix. We do have our own brand in our currently in our catalog, but I stocked up on a lot of this when I found out that it was going to be retiring. So I just added a small piece on the back of each of those. And then I have another piece of All About Autumn DSP measuring 3.5 by 1.5. And I have a piece. Hold on a moment. Okay, sorry about that. I lost my Very Vanilla piece measuring 3 by 1.5. And then I cut a piece of that natural ribbon, and this measures 3 3/4. Okay, so for my card base, I'm going to fold and burnish that. And then my larger piece of the DSP, I'm going to bring in my liquid glue. This is the Tombow Mono glue that's in our annual catalog, but I put it in a fine tip glue bottle. I get these on Amazon, and I will link it in the description of the video. So I'm going to add some glue to the back of this paper. Now this is going to completely cover the front of my card base. And this glue has a latex in it, so you don't need a whole lot for it to stick really well. So I'm just going to cover the whole front. Just press that into place. And I apologize if the camera is shaking. My phone stand is connected to the table, so if I move the table, it's going to shake, so I apologize. And then this piece of DSP, I'm going to add some glue to that. And I'm going to place that about, just kind of center that about there. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in my other adhesive, and I'm just going to add some across. So, and then I'm going to add my ribbon right on top of that. And press that down. Okay, so we'll set that aside. So for these pieces, let's see, I will stamp that after I die cut it. So I'm going to die cut this piece with the label, and then I will stamp my greeting on that afterwards. So I'll set that aside. For these two pieces here, I'm going to die cut the vein from the leaf die. So I will cut one of each out on that. And then for these two pieces, I will die cut the leaf, and then I will run it through the embossing folder. So I will be right back. Okay, so let me bring in my pieces. So for my leaves, these vein pieces, the copper colored one will go with the copper, the Cajun Craze, and the other one will go to that. So I only put that adhesive sheet up near the top, so all of this stem here does not have any of the sticky adhesive on it. I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool, and I'm just going to lift up the end of that, and then I'm just going to gently remove the adhesive backing, and then I'm going to put that onto my leaf. Attempt to put it on my leaf. Let's see. Put that on there, and then we'll just press it down. We turn it over. We'll press down from the back, like so. Put that aside, and then we'll do the same thing for this one. And over just to get it centered or close to being centered on the leaf. I'm going to press that down. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my seal and I'm going to add some adhesive to the back of my pretty peacock leaf. And I will stick that down right over my ribbon. And then I get an angle and bring it down just a little bit. Like so. And press that down. And then we'll add our Cajun Craze leaf. And I'll add that right down here. Let's see, about there. And press that down. Okay, and then for my greeting, I'm going to bring in my early Espersso ink. And I'm going to stamp this twice. I'm going to stamp I'm thankful up near the top. Let's see if I can get this straight. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in my other stamp that says, to have you as a friend. And then I'll stamp that right underneath. Okay, it's not bad. Could have came down just a little bit lower, but you can still read that. And then I will add a few dimensionals to the back of that. Okay. And then I will put that right over my leaves, like so. And then I'll bring in my adhesive back speckled dots. And I will use these green ones. I think these are either Mossy, Meadow color, or Old Olive. I'll add a larger one down here, a smaller one here diagonal from it, and then I'll add one more small one up here. Okay, so that is my third card. So let me bring in my other ones. Let me remove this. And so my first card was this simple layered card. The paper really does showcase the card. I mean, the paper just speaks for itself. So that's our first card. And then our second. So I get these in there so you can see them really well. And then this was our third card. Okay. So I hope you liked today's projects. If you like them, please give my video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my channel. The button is right in the lower right hand corner of this video. And there's a notification bell that you can click on that will let you know when I load another video. So I thank you for joining me. You all have a blessed week. Bye-bye.